Are you looking for a takeout meal without the takeout bites, points, and calories? I have the perfect solution for you here. This is Healthi General Tso's chicken from MasonFit.com. It is delicious, and I am going to save even more bites, points, and calories than Mason did. So if you're interested in seeing how this is made, stick around because it's coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I am a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Now today is actually someone else's, if you can believe it. I know, you've been overwhelmed with all of mine. Actually, I've been getting near the end of what I already have, and I've been working on some new items, but they're not all ready yet. And some of them are desserts, some of them are muffins. So I wanted to do another main dish before I did any more desserts or muffins or anything like that. We can't live on snacks and desserts alone as much as I would love to. So I said, what should I do? And I did actually make this video for this item early on in my channel. And I did not record the audio for it. So I filmed the whole thing, no audio. I was new, what can I say? But I have a less likely of a chance of doing it now than I did early on. So I am redoing a video you never got to see because of my faux pas. Now this is for a version of General Tso's chicken. First of all, I got this recipe from Kinda Healthy Recipes, MasonFit.com. I will leave the link to his site down below, as well as print out this recipe down there, along with the changes, because I am making changes, and they're going to be significant changes. So you will find out all about that once we get to all the bites, points, calories, etc. at the end. But the one thing that did kind of annoy me about this recipe is not anything in the recipe. It is in the name. Because as a retired English teacher, it drove me a little crazy that Mason Woodruff, the creator of this recipe, did not put an apostrophe S after General Tso's chicken. He just put General Tso chicken. Drives me crazy. But it's a good recipe, so I'm overlooking it. I even printed out my board to duplicate exactly what he did, but just know there should be an apostrophe S. And this recipe, depending on where you are, has all sorts of different names. If you order it from a restaurant, it's General Tso's chicken, General Tao's chicken, General Chow's chicken, General Mao's chicken. There's all sorts of generals in this lineup. I've always known it as General Tso's chicken or occasionally General Gao's chicken. But wherever you are, if there's a general in the name, this is probably what they're referring to. However, Paul had a little issue with this recipe, not the flavor, and not the name, because he didn't read the name. But what Mason does is he breads the chicken with breadcrumbs. And if you know, typical General Tso's chicken has like a bread coating on it, not breadcrumbs. So that kind of bothers Paul. But as I always say, and I did a tag just this past Tuesday where they were asking about a mantra, your personal mantra. And I didn't think I had one, but now I'm thinking maybe I do, because typically what I say on this channel is don't compare the original to what you are eating. Do you enjoy what you're eating? Then fine, eat it. Don't keep comparing, oh, it doesn't have the breading, oh, it doesn't have this. There are going to be differences. But if you can enjoy what you're eating and not compare it to the original, you'll be fine. Now this recipe does have a fair number of ingredients, so let us go over those. Now I did, as I said, make some changes. Now in his recipe, Mason has you do 1.5 pounds of chicken breast. I'm doing just 1 pound. And all of the changes I make will be in the write-up that I put down below. I will put his ingredients and then underneath that put what I actually used. And that way you'll know how I got the bites, points, and calories and macros that I got as opposed to what his original gets. But I have 1 pound of chicken breast here. I have 3 scallions here. I actually have 4 because they were kind of thin. But he calls for 3 scallions, and that's what I usually go by. But mine were kind of small, so I went with 4. Now here's another change. As I said, he uses breadcrumbs, and I'm using panko breadcrumbs. But he calls for 3/4 cup, and I'm only using 1/2 cup. Now there is one thing that I could have used, and let me grab that real quick. Be right back. Okay, so I had posted about this on Instagram and Facebook, and this is breadcrumbs made out of chickpeas. So they're basically protein breadcrumbs, no actual bread in there. And I did kind of like a panko style crumb. You could whiz these down in the food processor to make them more like an Italian breadcrumb kind of deal. Now I could have used these and reduced the bites or points probably a little bit more, at least the calories, because this is pretty low bite, low point. So I'm not sure how much of a difference this would make. I have used it already to bread some chicken before, and it was good. I liked it. I haven't tried it yet as like a meatloaf filler instead of breadcrumbs, but I want to try that as well. But it was surprisingly interesting to use these as breadcrumbs. I saw this little trick on a YouTube video, and I will link this down below. I don't remember the name of the channel at the moment. If I can remember to do so, I'll leave it down here. But I will leave the link for these chickpea breadcrumbs down in the description box if you're interested in trying it out. As I said, it was interesting. Definitely not the same exact texture, but it was close enough that we didn't mind it whatsoever. Let me get these put back on the counter and we'll move on with the rest of our ingredients. Okay, so I also have a tablespoon of soy sauce, reduced sodium soy sauce here, as well as a tablespoon of red wine vinegar. He says you can use any vinegar you want, but for some reason he suggests red wine vinegar. I think rice wine would probably be a great option since this is an Asian dish, but you do as you like to do. Another change that I made, he called for 2 tablespoons of Parmesan, or about 15 grams. I went with about 7 grams of Parmesan, so it's about a tablespoon, so I've cut that in half. And that's where I shaved a little more off of the bites and points. I have 1 egg, I have a 1/2 cup of chicken broth, and here I have a 1/4 cup of the same reduced sodium soy sauce. This is for the actual sauce. This is for the chicken marinade and the breading. A 1/4 cup of brown sugar replacement. I use Swerve, which I enjoy. I do have some cooking spray here, and I will explain that shortly. I also have a tablespoon of minced ginger or finely grated ginger, and I don't do it myself. I just buy it in the jar. So much easier because I'd often buy the ginger root and I'd use it one time, even storing it in the freezer. It ended up not really lasting, so I much prefer using the stuff in the jar. That's how often I use it, that it's just easier and more convenient. That lasts for quite a while in the fridge. I have 3 cloves of garlic minced, which is about a teaspoon each. So I just have a heaping tablespoon, which is 3 teaspoons, of minced garlic out of the jar. Again, I'm not going to spend my time mincing garlic. I mean, I have, but if I can get away with not doing it, I'm doing that. Okay, I have a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, which he says is optional, but we like pepper in this house, so And I also have to reduce the spice level on this for my partner Paul because he does not like spicy foods. So he does enjoy pepper. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, I did include the pepper, but that's an optional step. There's not going to be any salt, as you can see, because we have the soy sauce, which is salty, even though this is a reduced sodium version. You still don't want to add any additional salt. Now, I have 2 teaspoons of sesame oil, and Mason called for 1.5 tablespoons. I cut that back, still get that flavor from it, but I'm not contributing more to the bites and points and calories than I need. So I reduced that to 2 teaspoons of sesame oil. And I have 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. Again, you could use any vinegar, but that's the one for the sauce. This one is the one for the chicken. Now, he calls for 4 to 6 dried arbol chilies. As I said, I need to reduce the spice of this, so I'm not going through the hassle of using the dried chilies, especially since I have some Korean chili flakes here. And they look kind of like actual little flakes, almost, I hate to say it, but almost kind of like fish food, you know, that flaky little fish food you find. It kind of has that look to it. But I have 1 teaspoon of this here, just so I get a little hint of heat, and the Korean chili flakes are not overly spicy. As I say, I have to keep that down, and I can add my own hot sauce or whatever, sriracha, at the table. But this way it doesn't affect Paul eating it and finding it too spicy. And I have 1 egg that is going to be part of the breading process. So that is everything. Let me move the sauce ingredients out of the way, and we will start prepping the chicken. Okay, so I forgot to mention that I do have the chicken cut into bite-sized pieces, about 1 inch. And I've mentioned this previously that for me, 1 inch, I've actually measured my finger. Right up to this bend, first bend in my pinky is about 1 inch, so I can always just judge that way. So if you often have trouble figuring out, wait, I have to cut this into 1 inch, what is that? Just measure part of your finger to see where about 1 inch would be. It might be this finger, it might be the pinky. It's an easy way if you're just chopping things up. You don't need to get out a ruler or be too precise. Gives you a rough guide, so just a little tip. So to begin with, we are going to whisk together, and I hope that my arms stay steady. They've been giving me a little trouble. And for those of you who may be new here, I have neuropathy and myopathy, meaning my muscles and nerves don't always work correctly. So sometimes you'll hear in my jaw, it's getting stiff. My muscles will spasm, they'll cramp. So I've been having a little difficulty. So I want to hopefully not spill anything. So we shall see how that goes. I have 1 egg. I'm going to put in the 1 tablespoon of vinegar, the tablespoon of soy sauce, and the black pepper. And we're just going to whisk that together. Now the egg is at room temperature, so that way it can blend more easily into this mixture. And not give me a hard time, because when things are too cold, they're going to try to hold on to their shape. So if they're at room temperature, you're going to have a much easier time of breaking it up. And then I'm going to just pour this over my chicken and toss this around. Okay, so set this aside. And then what we are going to do is take our breadcrumbs and our Parmesan and put those 2 together. And I really should have had a separate fork for this, but it'll be fine. Because one thing he also suggests is putting a little bit of this liquid in here. And I will show you why in a moment. My jaw is really tightening up on me here. Okay, so that's roughly combined. Just going to take a little bit of the egg mixture, the little marinade, and add that in here. And what this is going to do is it's going to make some clumps of breadcrumb. It's going to give it a little more texture, especially if you weren't using panko and you just were using regular breadcrumbs. This would help to make the texture a little different. And this is a common trick in making fried chicken. A lot of times for the breading, you'll take some of the buttermilk or whatever, sprinkle it into the flour, just so you get little clumps. So I'm just gonna stir that through and form little clumps. Just get them grouped a little bit together so you have a little more texture for your breading. All right, so let me clean up a few things and we will move on. All right, now for the chicken, even though I have a frying pan here, we're not cooking the chicken on the stovetop. That's why I have a sheet pan here, because we are going to cook it in the oven. Now I have my half sheet pan here, rimmed baking sheet, whatever you want to call it, with a cooling rack set in there that I've sprayed very well with the cooking spray. And what we're going to do is put the chicken on here. Having it on the cooling rack will allow that hot air to get underneath it. If you don't have a cooling rack, that's fine. You don't need to use one. But although Mason didn't mention this in his recipe, what I would do is put the pan in the oven while I'm preheating it to get it hot. Then once the chicken was ready and the oven was heated, I would open it up, spray the pan, put the chicken onto it. So that way the hot pan is going to start cooking the bottom of that chicken, and it just gives it a little crispier edge on the bottom than it might if you just put it on the pan and into the oven. So that's what I would do, but you do you. Whatever you need to do, you could do it in the air fryer if you want. That would work too. So we're just going to take our chicken and start breading it, throwing a few pieces into the breadcrumbs and tossing those around to coat. It doesn't have to be too heavily coated, but once I get it coated to my satisfaction, I'm just going to put these onto the rack. And so we're just going to do this with all of the little bits of chicken, and I will be back when they're ready to go into the oven. All right, so the chicken's all breaded. You want to make sure that there is space between them so that the air can circulate around them. And you can see that they're not all very well coated, or you're not making chicken nuggets. You're just getting a little crunch on there for the texture. So you don't have to worry about coating them too precisely. However, you'll see that the bowl is fairly well empty. As you get towards the end of coating, there's going to be less and less breadcrumbs to coat. So what I do is once I get to the end, I put the last of the chicken in, I coat it with what I can. Then I take some of the earlier ones that have a bit more of the breadcrumb mixture on them, put them back in and toss them so that kind of like mixes some of the excess breadcrumbs onto the ones that are towards the end. So that way I don't have to add any additional breadcrumbs. And like I said, you could if you wanted to and just adjust the bites or points, but you're not making nuggets, so this little coating is just fine. So now these are going to go into the oven, 400-degree oven, for 14 to 16 minutes. He suggests testing the biggest one to make sure it's at 165, but I mean, because that is the safe temperature for cooking chicken breast, but I've never had any trouble, and you can usually tell it's pretty opaque, pretty firm. But this is going in the oven, and then we will start working on our sauce. Okay, so for the sauce, I have over here my scallions, my ginger, and my garlic. Those are going to be put into the pan first, but we're going to mix the rest of the ingredients together in here. And if you're wondering why I'm doing it on the stovetop instead of over here where I normally do it, It's because I've already moved the overhead camera and I'm not moving it again. I already spilled some of my red wine vinegar just trying to slide it over here, so I don't want to keep manipulating things if I can help it. So in my little container, and I am going to use 2 hands because I don't trust my arms right now, I'm going to put in our chicken broth. I don't know why I say our, it's my chicken broth. You can have some if you want, but the vinegar, the 1/4 cup of soy sauce, and it almost went, the brown sugar, and the chili flakes, the Korean chili flakes. You can use whatever you want. You could do as his recipe says and use the arbol chilies. That would go in with this stuff over here. And we're only going to use about half of the sesame oil in here. The rest is going to go in the pan, and it's basically all going together, so I'm not even really going to measure it. I'm just going to throw that in there and whisk this all together so that way it's ready once I've gotten the other things warmed up. And the brown sugar, maybe it was the vinegar, it really broke down pretty quickly. So let me set that aside, set these aside, and bring in my pan. Okay, so I'm going to set my pan over medium-high heat and spray it with some cooking spray. Because I'm not using all of the sesame oil that is recommended, it is a good idea to use the cooking spray. So this will give me some of the flavor that I want from the oil, but not rely solely on the oil. The cooking spray will do most of the work. Okay, I'm going to swirl the pan a little bit, get that sesame oil spread around. Like I said, we're only using 2 teaspoons for the whole dish, but just this little bit I added in there, I'm really getting a whiff of. Now we're going to add in our scallions, and you can hear the little sizzle, that's what you want, the garlic. And often once I add in the ginger, it's really gonna sizzle because there's a lot of moisture in this grated ginger. See a lot of sizzling and popping going on. Just going to stir this around. You just want to get this heated up and get the garlic fragrant. Takes about 30 seconds or so. Now if you were using the chilies as he recommends, you would do that after this has warmed up a little bit and do that for another 30 to 60 seconds. I believe he has it listed as. But you just want to wake up the flavors in here and deepen that garlic flavor, take some of the bitterness out. That's what cooking it down will do. But if you go too far and let it get burnt, you get even more bitterness. So it's a delicate balance, but about 30 seconds to a minute should be fine. Now we are going to add in the sauce and make sure some of that sugar has settled onto the bottom. So you want to put that in there and just stir this around. And now we're going to let this heat up and we're going to let it thicken. But I'm going to give this 5 to 7 minutes and I'll be back when it's ready. Okay, so the chicken has come out and you can see it's got a little color on the breadcrumbs. Now, if you wanted, you could do the same thing and make chicken nuggets. Just, I would double up on the breading because, as I said, we weren't going for chicken nuggets, but you could if you wanted to. Or you could even just make chicken nuggets this way and not have them as breaded as usual. It's your call. Everything is your call. I've got the sauce reducing. Once the sauce is reduced enough, I'm going to turn it down to low and we're going to throw the chicken in. But I will do that in just a moment. Okay, so it's been about 5-7 minutes. And you can see when I drag my spatula through it, it takes a moment for it to fill back in. That's what you want. You don't want it to just immediately flood back in. You want it to slowly fill in that gap. That shows that it is reduced enough for our purposes. So let me turn this down to low. And now I will carefully, because this pan is still going to be hot, add in our chicken. And because I sprayed it fairly well, it's coming right off of the rack. So it shouldn't stick if you sprayed it well enough. I'm gonna toss that in and try not to throw them all over the place. But you know, if I'm not making a mess, I'm not cooking. Okay. So we're just going to toss this all together into the sauce, get it well coated. Now, if you wanted more sauce, you could double up on the recipe as Mason suggests, but the way I calculated it was for this amount. And honestly, I think this amount works well, but it depends on what you're pairing it with. If you were pairing it with white rice and you wanted some of that sauce for the rice, then you might want to double up on the sauce and then just adjust the bites or point. But there you have it. General Tso's chicken from masonfit.com. As I said, I will leave the link to his site down below. I will also have the printed recipe down below along with my changes that I've made, because the changes I made do make quite a difference. Now on his recipe, it showed that he was going by smart points, which was before the color system. So he was saying he was getting 5 smart points for it. When I input it, when I was doing WW and then Healthi, or formerly I Truck Bites, I got 4. So this is 4 servings of chicken and the sauce. For his version, it would be 4 Better Balanced bites. I'm on the Healthi Better Balanced plan, which is equivalent to the old WW Blue plan. So hopefully you can figure out, based on the Blue plan, if you're on WW, what your personal points would be. If you were following calories, his version, and this is his version, not the one I just did here, would be 438 calories. The fat for his would be 13.8 grams. The carbs would be 26.7 grams. The fiber would be 1 gram. And the protein would be 59 grams. But that's his version. My version, with the changes that I've made, you lose half of the points or bites. So this is only 2 bites or blue points. If you're following calories, you actually lose 200 calories. So 1 serving of this would only be 238 calories, the way that I made it. The fat would drop down to 7 grams. The carbs drop down to 21.9 grams. The fiber drops to 0.8 grams. And the protein drops to 30.6 grams because I am using less chicken than he used. But the changes I made cut the bites in half and the calories almost in half. You lost 200 calories just with those changes. So you can take a recipe and change it up in different ways, even if it's already considered healthy. I've taken a number of WW recipes and altered them to get the bites, points, calories, etc. reduced. They would tend to have you use sugar, which is fine, but I would use artificial sweeteners and things like that. So swap things out if you want to and try to reduce the bites and points wherever you can. If you find, because I found some WW recipes, 9 points, 11 points, and I'm like, I mean, I don't mind spending that if it's really good, but if I can reduce it down, I'm going to reduce it down, and that's what I did with this recipe here. And as I said, I will have this printed out down below. You can just copy and paste it, showing his original version, and underneath each of the ingredients, I list the changes that I made if I did make a change. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I would appreciate a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet and you are looking for recipes that can help you on a weight loss journey. Share any of my videos if you think there's someone out there who would appreciate this kind of content. And hit the notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video. As I've said before, I did cut back to 1 recipe a week, but there will be times when I can manage another video and just put it up at random times. So hit the notification bell so you do know if I manage to get another video out. And comment down below if this take on General Tso's chicken is something you are interested in. Also, what do they call it where you live? Is it General Tso's, General Gao's, General Chow's? What do you know it as? And if you are looking for any of my recipes, you can find the link to my recipe blog down in the description box. And if you're not sure how to access the description box, underneath there's a video where it says Recipes with Roy. You'll see the word Show More. Tap that, opens up the description box. And there you will find a link to my recipe blog, to my Amazon storefront. So if I've used something here that you are interested in, it may be there. My Fetch Rewards, which Fetch is a shopping app that gives you gift cards for scanning your receipts. That's all you have to do. And you're gonna go shopping anyways, why not? Anyways, that's down there with my Built Bar rewards and my social media. Here is my Instagram handle if you want to follow me over there. And there are 2 Facebook groups that I am part of. One is mine, Recipes with Roy, and the other one is Finding Our Way, W-E-I-G-H. And that one I co-admin with Jennifer Lynn from the Jennifer Lynn channel, as well as Bree Coleman from Balancing Life with Bree. So join us over there. There's lots of great tips, tricks, recipes, support, and people. So I'd better go get this served up. No takeout for us tonight. And I hope that you are going to give this one a try. It is really very tasty and satisfying. So until next time, bye.